Okay, greetings and peace, everyone. Welcome to the Committed Relationships and Spiritual Activity YouTube channel. And I am your host, Relationship Investigative Reporter Neo, and I'm here to share some info with the people. Now, this recording right here is going to be another psychological trap recording, and for my current subscribers who already know what I'm talking about, I use every so often I will go ahead and record a new psychological trap recording. And what I mean by psychological trap is it's one of those things where society has created one or more mechanisms that keeps people psychologically trapped into a certain mindset, that which in turn forces them to behave and locked into a certain mindset. And I've done a variety of different psychological trap recordings. You can go to my YouTube channel here and go to the home page, then you search up the playlist and you'll see the playlist for the psychological traps. And these traps, like I said, that keeps people in a certain mindset that is limited, very limited, and it causes them to behave in a one particular type of way. And there's a variety of different traps that everybody is in. They're usually in one or more psychological traps. And these ones that I have mentioned already and identified are the ones that I used to be in years ago. But personal development and also spiritual enlightenment and growth has allowed me to get outside of them and then analyze them. After I analyze them, then I go ahead and report my findings from my analysis, just as I do with relationships. But this one is about psychological traps. Okay, so this one right here is the psychological trap of materialism. Now, this one is highly frequent throughout this world in general, but especially here in America. Most Americans largely are highly materialistic in one way or another. And materialism deals with the ego. It is the human ego that causes people to be materialistic. And then we have the media outlets that influences and inflates the human ego as far as materialism. It creates more and more materialistic desires with the TV shows, the movies, especially the commercials. The commercials largely deal with the subliminal suggestion, causing people to go out, go out and then purchase unnecessary things. If you want to hear more information about that, you can check out the movie Fight Club too. Listen to Brad Pitt when he's sitting down speaking with Ed Norton at the bar. I think it's a bar or a restaurant. And he's talking about how society causes us to purchase unnecessary shit, unnecessary things. And it is highly, highly true. Everything he said in that scene right there, or at least the majority of it, is true. It's just people just keep buying more and more unnecessary things. And the materialism trap, psychological trap, I used to be in years ago. And I remember I had a good $12 an hour job, and I had my own apartment. I had cable, I had my Xbox, I had the internet. Let me see here. I had some good money coming in. And then the thing is I was also hanging with another friend of mine who was highly materialistic too. So it was like every single week or every other week, we would go to the mall and just buy clothes. We would buy clothing over and over again. And let's see, the clothing I would buy a whole bunch of video games. And I think it was sneakers too. Sneakers and boots. And it was so much to the point that once I got out of the materialism, like a year or two later, I once looked into my closet, and I mentioned this before in one of my other videos, my other recordings. I looked into my closet like a few years later, and I realized all of the clothing that I did not even wear yet, and they still had the stickers on them, the what do you call it, the tags on them. I'm like, yo, why the heck did I buy all of these goddamn clothes? So for me, at that time that I recognized it, I didn't even have places to wear the new clothes, the new clothing. So I'm like, yo, I got all these new clothing, and I don't really go many places, so I might as well sell these things. And that's exactly what I did. And the materialism and the ego, once people are locked into those traps, that materialism trap, they are buying unconsciously. They don't realize what they're doing because they're under subliminal mind control. And the people who are in this psychological trap, they are unconscious of what they're buying, and they're not thinking before they go ahead and buy things. And it's not only clothing, it's houses, it's cars, sneakers, boots. With the women, it's the shoes, especially the shoes, the purses, the makeup, especially that darn makeup. It's a lot. And what the ego does is it causes the person to believe that the more material possessions they have, the more important they'll be perceived as, because they have a new car, money in the bank, a job, a house, and nice clothing. Then the average person who's stuck in their ego and who's still immature, they're walking around thinking that they're better than other people just because they got new material possessions. And then the other thing that the ego causes the person to believe is that they are a mature adult because they have those material possessions. And it's not only the ego, but it's also the society that we live in. Here in America especially, it makes people believe that they have to have a certain material possessions to feel like they're an adult and to make them feel that they are important. Now, if a person feels that, then that is one indication that they are largely being governed by their ego rather than their higher spiritual consciousness. Those type of individuals you really want to keep a safe distance from once you have awakened to your higher consciousness and into maturity, because those individuals, they're going to always be obsessed with materialism, and they're always going to think that they have to have everything fancy smancy just to have a good time, when sometimes going the simple route is the actually best route to go. But the ones that stuck in materialism, they rather not be around certain people, some simplistic people, and they rather do everything where it has to be fancy. So it's like there's going to be a conflict a lot of the times with the people who don't need all of the fancy stuff and who are more simplistic and non-materialistic. There's going to be a consistent conflict with those people who are materialistic. And then the other thing, the ego, what it does is, because of those material possessions that it causes people to purchase, it creates a illusionary projection for the people that covers up their insecurities and overall inner conflicts. So it's like a lot of those people who are materialistic, materialistic in general, their ego is causing them to utilize the obtainment of those material possessions just to cover up their inner conflicts, rather than actually focus and resolve their inner conflict, so that they can realize that they don't have to go out and buy a whole bunch of material things just to make them feel good. So it's kind of like the alcoholic who purchases alcohol. It's very similar to the drug addict, the food addict. They do all of those things just to cover up their inner conflicts. When if they realize that resolving the inner conflicts is actually getting to the root of the problem, and then they won't feel like they have to be obsessed with going out and purchasing any of those things and taking part in any other activity just to cover up their inner conflicts. So when you see a person that is obsessed with all of the materialism and talking about other people who don't have those material things, especially when they go ahead and they talk bad on other people who don't have those things, those are the ones who are largely into their ego and into that psychological trap of the materialism. You have to keep in mind that just because they have those things does not mean that they are, number one, mature. Number two, doesn't mean that they have an adequate level of mental health, which in actuality, a lot of them who is trapped in the materialism trap have psychological, one or more major destructive mental issues that need to be resolved. And it doesn't mean that they're a mature adult. So you have to keep that in mind. And that's one thing that society does not want you to know and realize. And it does not want you to know that it's largely a cover-up. Definitely a cover-up. Now let's see here. How I got out of mine was I just went through a natural progression of maturity. And it was like the more I matured, the more I was able to raise and expand. Well, not I was able. The more my consciousness, higher consciousness, risen and expanded of life and spirituality and a variety of other things. And I just realized like, hey, I'm losing interest in a lot of material things that I used to be interested in. Like I used to be interested in buying a whole bunch of new clothes. I used to be highly interested in video games, to the point now I still play video games, but I'm not as interested in them as I used to be, to where I might play them like once a week when I used to play them like every single day, if not every single day, 3 times a week at least. So I lost interest in that. It's a whole bunch of stuff that I lost interest into. So it's like the more you mature, the more you'll start to lose interest in a lot of the things that you used to be interested in. And materialism is one of them. So I feel like the materialism trap, that's also a part of immaturity. And I look at a lot of people that once they matured, they realize that they don't have to be obsessed with going out and buying new clothes and making sure that they get the new Jordans, the new pieces of jewelry, and a whole bunch of other stuff, because it's largely the ego that's creating that projection of to cover up the insecurity within that individual. Now, one way, and I want to start giving some solutions. One way to get out of the trap, the materialism psychological trap, is number one, you have to identify and admit that you are in that psychological trap. As the alcoholics and the drug addicts, Anonymous, as you all know, that you have to first recognize and admit that you're an addict, first and foremost. Then the second thing is, before you start to follow through on that desire to go out and buy that new piece of material or whatever it is, stop and think about, is it necessary for you to have in general? And number two, is it necessary for you to have right now? 9 times out of 10, those new clothing, those new sneakers, and that new Xbox, that new PlayStation, that new video game, if you already have been trapped into materialism, you more than likely do not need whatever it is you're desiring right now. Then the other thing is if you have not been on what I call a TV fast, where you stop watching TV for at least a few weeks, if not maybe 3 to 6 months, as I did. I stopped watching it for 3 years, like some years ago, and that allowed me to stop the subliminal mind control of these TV shows and especially these commercials. That's what I want you to do. Oh, the other major thing is study your mind and subliminal mind control, because it's largely these commercials that's putting these images inside your head, in your mind, your subconscious, telling you that you need to go out and buy those things. Like for me, when I was on my first TV fast, just the first 2 weeks alone, I realized that I did not have a desire to go to any of the fast food restaurants. That's what the major cause for people having a desire to go to Wendy's, to go to McDonald's, Burger King, ordering Pizza Hut. It's those images that keeps going into people's minds that's causing them to desire to go and eat. If you study the subconscious mind, you know how images influence the subconscious mind, and your subconscious mind is what influences your desires and your behaviors. So study the subconscious mind. That's the other thing that you will be able to better get out of the psychological trap of materialism. So number one, you have to recognize that you are in the materialism psychological trap. Number two, you have to always question your desires. Question your desires and to really see, is it necessary? Question yourself, is it necessary for you to purchase the thing in general? And also, is it necessary to purchase it right now? The more you do that, the more you'll realize that a lot of the stuff that you want to get is highly unnecessary, and you can wait for it or you can go without it in general. Then the other thing is study the subconscious mind and how it functions, and you'll see that images really do influence your behavior and your desires, and it is the TV that's largely causing you to desire these things that is highly unnecessary to purchase. And then if you really want to try it out, you have to do a TV fast, is what I call. Stop watching TV for at least a few days, then you can try a week, and then you can try 2 weeks, then you can try a month. If you want to go further and you really want to do personal development work and clear out actually stop those further subliminal suggestions coming into your head until you strengthen your mind, then you can go ahead and do a TV fast as long as you want, really. For me, I did it for about, I say 2 to 3 years, a while back ago, and then just kept strengthening my mind to the point now I can watch TV and I can control my behavior. That's why I tell people that for the untrained mind, especially young children, TV is detrimental to their overall mental health. But that's for you to decide. All right, thank you very much. Please do like, comment, and certainly share this recording, this video link with anybody you feel that will be interested in it and need to listen to it, and certainly share it on your social media networks, because people need to understand this psychological trap, because this one is one of the top ones, along with the family trap and a lot of my other psychological traps that I have on my psychological trap list on the homepage here. You got any questions, comments, and concerns, you can send me an email for non-relationship material at neooneness@gmail.com. That's neooneness@gmail.com. Check the description also for links. And until next time, thank you.